Gustavo, and I would like to introduce the 5 Seasons of Guitar. It consists of a 5 CD box set, and I've taken just about 5 years to complete it. It all started when I was playing my guitar to some friends, and Jeremy, my youngest son, overheard me playing. And then he later told me, "Dad, I want you to record all your guitar pieces." It was a big ask. So I said no, but later on, after further thought, I decided to go ahead with the project. It consisted of relearning a lot of the pieces I had forgotten about. Some of them I had dismissed as being not of any value. So we made a list of all the pieces, and we classified them in 4 seasons in order to call them the 4 Seasons of Guitar. And I started recording in this is the studio where we record. And when all that was completed, Jeremy listened to the overall sound and said, "I think we can do much better than that." So he got onto the internet and sourced some better microphones like these and other pieces of equipment. And I started to record with this better equipment, and it took another year and a half or so to complete. So overall, it was a long task, but we've come up with a fairly good product. The sound quality is excellent. Now, at some stage, we discovered some old cassettes which I had recorded for my parents during my Adelaide years. My parents were in Melbourne. I used to live in Adelaide in the mid-70s, and I would communicate with my parents via cassette. And I would record myself playing the guitar and showed my parents what I was up to and what were my latest compositions. And to my surprise, there were some pieces I had completely forgotten about. Luckily, I had kept the original music, so because I used to write all my music in old exercise books. So we found these old books, and I relearned those pieces. So we had to add about 16 pieces, and we couldn't fit them all into the 4 CDs, so we added 1 season, so it became the 5 Seasons of Guitar. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the content of each season. In Season of Spring, we have put some pieces which are fairly bouncy and romantic, fresh, full of life. And one of these pieces is Green Butterfly. Now, Green Butterfly is written in a style of Villa-Lobos, who is a South American composer, Brazilian composer. I'm very fond of the South American type of rhythms and harmonies. So Green Butterfly is definitely of that style. Another piece of note is Strings of Love. I wrote Strings of Love shortly after my marriage with Debbie, and it originally was a zither and guitar duet, but in the 5 seasons I have arranged it for 2 guitars. Another significant set of pieces in spring is the 5 naive pictures. Debbie and I were very fond of naive paintings at the time, and I wrote those 5 short pieces in the Impressionist style, and Debbie gave the title of each piece. Now, moving on to summer. Summer begins with a very relaxing piece called Summer Skies, again in a style of South American music with these cross rhythms. Another significant piece in summer is Surya. Now, for Surya, I use my acoustic guitar. This is it's a Maton guitar. It's quite suitable for those arpeggio type pieces because there's a very long ring. The steel strings ring for a long time. But for all my other pieces, I use my classical guitar, which is a Spanish-made guitar. It's made by Isidro Garrido from Granada. I bought this guitar when I was in Adelaide. I used to take lessons from a teacher there called John de la Torre, and he sold me this guitar, which I've used ever since. Back to summer. In summer we have a piece called Staffa Island, and Staffa Island was written when I went back to Europe in 1976, and I visited Scotland because I had friends there. And during my visit I went to the Isle of Mull and the Isle of Iona, which is at the extreme western side of Mull. And from Iona you can take a boat trip and go around Staffa Island, which is a small rock really. And Staffa Island is famous for the Fingal's Cave. And of course Mendelssohn has written a piece called the Fingal's Cave Overture. It is a very inspiring part of the world. And I remember that as we were going around in a small boat getting quite wet, this theme came in my head and I was whistling it. And later I completed the piece. Another significant piece or set of pieces is the Little Munchki Suite. Little Munchki is the nickname we gave to my son, my firstborn son, Nicholas. The 4th piece, the Rubato Waltz, was written in about an hour and a half. I remember it was a Saturday morning, I had to go shopping, but just before I went shopping I had this in my head and I wrote it down fairly quickly. It normally takes me a lot longer than that, like several days or a couple of weeks at least to write a piece. So it was unusual that way. Now we come to autumn. Autumn is the mystic. It's full of wistful pieces, and some of them are quite substantial in length. I'd just like you to hear a little bit of the Rose Garden. The Rose Garden is a very moving piece, and it is perhaps not a type of rose garden you would see in a bright sunshine full of pink roses. It's very subdued scene, possibly quite dramatic, maybe of a night time. The She-Oak on the Hill was written during my Adelaide years. I used to take long walks on the coastline of south of Adelaide, and there were some she-oaks there, and on a windy day those she-oaks make a beautiful sound like a pine tree. She-oaks are a native pine, and they sway in the wind. It's very beautiful. So that is a very moving piece as well, the She-Oak on the Hill. It was a song, and the words were, "The she-oak on the hill, she sounds like the coming of the sea or a fife. The she-oak on the hill, she sounds like, but when the wind is still, she stays quiet." And it's a long piece with various episodes in it. Autumn ends with Asphodels. Asphodels is an improvisation on top of another improvisation. I had 2 tape recorders, so I recorded my first part on one tape recorder. It was an improvisation based on a very short theme. And then I recorded myself improvising upon this original improvisation. And the result was quite interesting. And when Jeremy picked up that old cassette and said, "What's that?" And he listened to it, he said, "Oh, that you must include that in the 5 seasons." So we re-recorded a different version, of course. You cannot improvise exactly twice the same way. Now we come to winter. In winter, I have a very interesting improvisation on "Sweet Is Thy Will," which I will play now. And I also wrote the albatross. Now the albatross is very depictive of the flight of the albatross. In the early 80s, I made an audio visual, and I called it "Through a Musician's Eyes." It consisted of 7 preludes, illustrated by a set of slides. And I obtained some slides of albatross from some fishermen in Warrnambool. A friend of mine helped me to put this audiovisual together. The Another piece of interest is the guitar lesson. And the guitar lesson is a fairly substantial piece which describes the various moods that the guitar student would go through as he goes regularly to his lesson. Sometimes he is discouraged and sometimes he is happy with his results. The piece finishes on a triumphant sound of somebody who would be very pleased with his improvement. And finally, the fifth season. The Long Voyage was my first composition. I wrote it when I was still in France, in a college in Normandy, where I was a boarder. And during my spare time there, I would contemplate the meaning of life, and I would also write music. And that was a piece from that time. And Orion is also in the fifth season. I remember I woke up one morning and I remembered hearing in a dream this theme. It was played in a room when I couldn't see who was playing, and I could hear this tremolo melody. And as I woke up, I realized it was just a dream, so I dashed to the desk and grabbed a pen and jotted that melody down. And later on I completed the piece. This is a description of some of the pieces, but there are of course many pieces. There are altogether 58 compositions and 22 arrangements. So the music is available if you're interested to learn how to play those pieces. Please look at my website or contact me and I can send you the paper sheet music or a PDF of the music. If you're interested in the 5 seasons, please look at my website. Thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye. Now we're going to look at the content of each season. Please note that each season ends with a number of bonus tracks. These tracks were taken from various cassettes, going as far back as the 70s when I used to live in Netherlands. They are unedited and they give you an idea of how I used to play in those days. The total time of the 5 seasons is over 6 hours, and the bonus tracks make up about 1.5 hours.